Well, hello dear friends, this is Bob Hatton. This is the Encourager. I'm so glad that you can join me today, and what a beautiful view we've got here. Springtime has come, and this is always a very nice time of the year. So I'm very happy to be with you this morning, and I do wish you God's blessing. We're coming to the end of chapter 3 in the book of Deuteronomy, and we started this book in chapter 1, and in chapter 1 we see Moses speaking to all the people of Israel. There's a huge group in front of him. He's speaking to the new generation that's going to go into the promised land. But by the time Moses explained everything, what had happened and how they got to where they've got to, and that this is now a new day and God is giving them a new chance to enter into the inheritance, to get a hold of everything that God wants to give them. And then they move forward and they actually bless the nations of Moab on Edom, and then they have to confront Heshbon and Bashan. And there's of course conflict and there's fighting and so on. But in the end, Israel come out on top. And then we find Moses, he's no longer in front of the people, but he's there where we all need to go, and he's there in front of God, and he's speaking to God. He's doing what we call prayer. He's praying. Now, when he starts off, of course, we saw that yesterday, he's praising God. He's worshipping God. He's confessing how great and how wonderful and how majestic God is. And as I explained yesterday, this is a very important part of our Christian life. But then he's also praying. That means he's talking to God. He's got some requests. He wants to ask God for some things. And, sometimes we enter into prayer because we're a little bit perplexed about things that are happening. We don't understand this or that, and we're asking God to explain, to give us revelation about a certain subject. But we do have this which we call intercession, where we begin to ask God. We ask God to help us. We ask God to give us something. We have God for his provision and many other things as well. Well, now we got a glimpse of what Moses is doing. And Moses, he's got something very, very special on his heart. He says, Lord, let me enter the promised land. And I guess when God heard that, he must have thought, oh no, not again. We've been through all this before. Moses, you're not going to go into the promised land. And the thing was, that God didn't allow the old generation to enter the promised land because of their disbelief and because of their disobedience. And the same reason, and this was the same reason that God wasn't going to allow Moses now to enter the promised land. I mean, Moses lived on a different level to the people. He was on a much higher level. He'd experienced more things. God had given him more. He had this greater revelation. He'd been right on the top of the mountain. He had been standing in the real presence of God. It wasn't any shadow, it wasn't any cloud or anything. He was there. He was right in God's presence. He had spoken to God. He had experienced so much. Wow, that's great. And don't we want that kind of relationship to God? But at the same time, the higher our level of faith and the higher our level that we go to, the greater our responsibility and the greater need of accountability do we have. And God spoke to Moses in one incident, and he said, I want you to speak to the rock, and when you speak to the rock, water will gush out and the people will have a provision of water. Now, we'd been to a similar situation before, and God said, I want you to beat the rock and water will come out. So he's there again, and he does the same thing again. He beats the rock with his staff, and water begins to flow out, and the people have a provision. There's water, they have enough to drink, they have enough for their animals and so on. But the thing is, God told him to do something different, and he didn't. He disobeyed. He didn't trust God. And that's, of course, at a very, very high level. But God God called Moses for this kind of accountability. And God says to him, Moses, I know that you've been thinking about the promised land now for the last 40 years when you left Egypt. That was on your heart. That was moving within you. You had a vision. You were going to go into the promised land. When we went through the Red Sea, that was on your heart, the promised land. You went to bed and you dreamt about the promised land. You got up in the morning, you spoke about it, you taught about it. It was a promised land all the time. And you're not going to enter into that promised land because I've got to show this people who I am, and that when I speak a word, my holiness demands that this word will be fulfilled. Moses, you can have a look at the promised land, but you're not going to enter into it. And we can just understand, how disappointed Moses must be. But you see, when we start to pray and when we want to move forward, it's not just about us. It's not just about my plans. It's not just about what I would like to do. It's not about my vision, but I'm in a fellowship. I am connected to other people. And whatever, God is going to do with me, it affects other people. And God had a plan for Moses' life. And I'm so grateful and I'm so amazed that God has a plan with my life. And he's got a plan for your life, but it's connected into the plans that he's got for other people's lives. So when God says you're not going to go into the land that I promised the people of Israel, he was also saying make way for the next generation. Yeah, the next generation, the mass of people is there, but you also have a new generation of leadership that is coming up. And Moses, it's time to step to one side and commission Joshua that he is going to take the people into the promised land. And the first time God spoke to Joshua, he said to him, Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. This is a new time. We are into a new season and I will be with you. And that is just great. And it's sometimes very difficult after you've been holding a thing so tight and you've been so committed to something for so long, for 40 years like Moses, it's sometimes very difficult to leave go, to release it. But if we just keep holding on and we don't release and open our hand, God can't give us the new thing. And sometimes this is a difficulty. I understand that. I've been through that a number of times. But the best thing to do is to leave go of the good so that we can get a hold of the best. God is moving on and God is taking us with him. And for Moses, it was time to step aside. He had done so many great things. God said, I'm going to send you a prophet like Moses. He didn't say Moses is like the prophet who I'm going to send, but I'm going to send you a prophet like Moses. And of course, he's talking about Jesus. He didn't say Moses is like Jesus, but he says Jesus will be like Moses and have such a close relationship with the Father in heaven. So what I want to tell you, I'm telling myself at the moment, sometimes it is time to step to one side and let the new thing come so that there will be greater fruit. And with that, I've stepped to one side and you can see the wonderful trees and the blossom there. So anyway, have a good day. God bless you. I'll see you again. Your Bob Hatton, your encourager.